The massive space station hung in the void like a jeweled crown, its crystalline towers catching the light of 3 different suns. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her face to the transport window, watching the Galactic Council's headquarters grow larger as their small human ship approached the docking bay. "First time seeing it?" asked Ambassador Martinez from the seat beside her. His weathered face showed the calm confidence that had made him Earth's choice for this historic mission. "Pictures don't do it justice," Sarah replied, adjusting her simple blue uniform. Around them, the other members of humanity's first diplomatic team prepared for what would either be mankind's greatest triumph or its most embarrassing failure. The docking process took an hour. Sarah used the time to review her notes about the species they would meet. The Vorthak were reptilian, cold-blooded, and valued strength above all else. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects and prized efficiency. The Crystalline Collective thought in mathematical patterns. 12 other species made up the council, each stranger than the last. What they all had in common was their view of humanity. The preliminary reports were not encouraging. Every species had some natural advantage: armor plating, venomous fangs, razor-sharp claws, or the ability to survive in environments that would kill most other beings. Humans had none of these things. The airlock hissed open and Sarah got her first real look at alien architecture. The corridor stretched away in flowing curves, its walls seeming to pulse with inner light. Gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth normal, but not uncomfortably so. Their guide was a floating sphere of what looked like liquid metal. "Welcome, humans," it said in perfect English, though Sarah knew it was actually speaking in mathematical harmonics that the translation device converted. "I am Harmonious Calculation 779 of the Crystalline Collective. The Council awaits your arrival." They followed the sphere through corridors that defied human understanding of physics. Other beings passed them in the halls, some walking, some floating, some skittering on too many legs. Sarah noticed how they stared at the human delegation. Not with hostility exactly, but with the kind of bemused curiosity usually reserved for interesting but ultimately harmless pets. The council chamber was enormous, with seating arranged for dozens of different body types. As the humans entered, conversation stopped. Sarah felt like a mouse walking into a room full of cats. Ambassador Krex of the Vorthak dominated the nearest section of seating. He was 8 feet tall, covered in scales that looked like armor plating, and his mouth was filled with teeth designed for tearing flesh. When he smiled at the approaching humans, it was not reassuring. "So," Krex said, his voice a low rumble that Sarah felt in her bones. "These are the famous humans we have heard so much about." His golden eyes swept over their group dismissively. "They look even more fragile than the report suggested." Sarah heard Dr. Patel, their team's physicist, make a small sound of annoyance. Ambassador Martinez kept his expression neutral, but Sarah had worked with him long enough to see the tension in his shoulders. "We welcome you to the Galactic Council," said a melodious voice. Sarah turned to see what could only be a Zephyrian, 6 feet tall with 4 arms and compound eyes that sparkled like jewels. "I am Hive Singer Veltar. We are curious to learn about your species and your world." "Thank you," Martinez replied smoothly. "We're honored to be here and look forward to peaceful cooperation between our peoples." This brought a laugh from Krex that sounded like rocks grinding together. "Peaceful cooperation? Yes, I suppose that is all your kind is suited for." He gestured with one clawed hand. "Look at you. No natural weapons, no armor, skin so thin we can see the blood vessels beneath it. How did such soft creatures ever survive long enough to reach the stars?" "Perhaps," suggested Veltar diplomatically, "we should proceed to the welcoming feast. Food often helps beings understand each other better." The feast hall was even more impressive than the council chamber. Tables stretched in all directions, laden with foods from dozens of worlds. The smell was overwhelming, some pleasant, others less so, and several that made Sarah's eyes water. As the guest species, the humans were seated at the head table between Krex and a delegation of beings that looked like living crystals. Sarah found herself directly across from the Vorthak ambassador, who continued to study her with undisguised amusement. "Tell me, Dr. Chen," Krex said as servers began bringing out the first course, "what do humans eat? I confess, looking at your teeth, I cannot imagine how you manage to consume anything more challenging than soft fruits." Before Sarah could answer, a server placed something in front of her that made her stomach turn. It was clearly alive, a slug-like creature about the size of her fist, translucent blue-green and definitely still moving. Kepler slugs, Krex announced to the table at large, a delicacy among species with proper predatory instincts. They must be consumed while fresh and active, of course. Sarah watched as the other aliens at the table dealt with their portions. Krex simply bit his in half, his massive jaws crushing through what looked like a tough hide. Veltar extended a proboscis that apparently injected some kind of paralytic, because her slug stopped moving before she began to feed. The crystalline beings somehow absorbed their portions directly through their surfaces. All eyes turned to the humans. Sarah was acutely aware that this was some kind of test. The other members of the human delegation looked distinctly uncomfortable. Ambassador Martinez was trying to maintain his diplomatic smile, but Sarah could see him calculating how to politely decline without causing an interstellar incident. "Fascinating," Sarah said, picking up the slug and examining it closely. The muscular structure suggests it's quite strong for its size. The translucent skin indicates it's adapted for deep-water environments where light penetration is minimal. Yes, Krex said impatiently. "But can you eat it? Or are humans too delicate for real food?" Sarah met his golden gaze steadily. She had spent years studying alien biology, had eaten stranger things during her fieldwork on Earth, and she was not about to let humanity be dismissed as too weak for the galactic community. Without another word, she bit into the slug. The crunch echoed through the suddenly silent hall. The slug's flesh was actually quite pleasant, something like a cross between lobster and cucumber, with a faintly sweet aftertaste. Sarah chewed thoughtfully, swallowed, and reached for her water glass. "Interesting texture," she commented to the stunned table. "The muscle fibers are more complex than I expected. This creature was probably quite athletic in life." The silence stretched on. Krex's jaw had actually dropped open, revealing even more impressive teeth. Veltar's compound eyes were focused entirely on Sarah, with an intensity that felt almost physical. "Did she just," whispered one of the crystalline beings, "bite through a Kepler slug," finished another. "Without tools. Without venom. Without even hesitating." Sarah looked around the table with mild confusion. Was I supposed to prepare it differently? "I apologize if I violated some cultural protocol." "No," Krex said slowly. "No protocol violation. It's just that—" He paused, seeming to struggle with something. "Most species require specialized hunting adaptations to consume Kepler slugs. They have a reinforced hide that resists most natural weapons." "Oh," Sarah said, taking another bite. "This is pretty tender, actually." "What do you mean by reinforced?" But no one answered her question. The entire hall had fallen silent, and Sarah realized that every being in the room was staring at her with expressions she couldn't quite read. Something had just changed, though she wasn't sure what. The test was supposed to prove human weakness, but judging by the reactions around her, she had somehow done the opposite. She finished her slug in the growing silence, wondering what exactly she had just gotten humanity into. Dr. Vextar had not slept well, which was unusual for a crystalline being. Their species typically entered a restful state of reduced energy flow for exactly 6.7 hours each cycle. But last night had been different. The memory of the human female biting through a Kepler slug kept creating interference patterns in their consciousness. The xenobiology lab was Vextar's domain, a place where they had cataloged and analyzed thousands of species over the centuries. Every creature in the galaxy had its place in the great biological database, its feeding patterns and predatory adaptations carefully documented. Until yesterday, Vextar floated to the examination table where the remains of Dr. Chen's slug lay under a preservation field. The bite marks were clearly visible. 2 precise cuts where her front teeth had sheared through the creature's hide, surrounded by crushing damage from her back teeth. "Computer, analyze bite pattern and cross-reference with all known predatory species," Vextar commanded. The holographic display filled with data as the galaxy's most advanced biological computer began its work. Images of countless jaws, beaks, and feeding appendages flashed past. After several minutes, the computer spoke in its neutral tone. "Analysis complete. No matches found in current database." Vextar's crystalline form flickered with surprise. "Clarify. No matches at all?" "Correct. Bite pattern shows characteristics not present in any cataloged species. Pressure analysis indicates jaw strength approximately 300% greater than predicted, based on observed muscle mass. Cutting pattern suggests dental configuration optimal for processing both plant and animal matter, unusual for sapient species. Show closest approximations. New images appeared on the display. Closest match. Terran Tyrannosaurus rex extinct predator from Sol 3. Match probability 23%. Second closest Hadrogoth battle whale from Proxima Centauri b. Extinct for 2.3 million years. Match probability 19%. Vextar studied the comparisons with growing unease. Both species had been apex predators on their respective worlds. Both had gone extinct. And both had lived on planets classified as death worlds, places where no intelligent life should have been able to evolve. A chime indicated someone requesting entry to the lab. Vextar turned to see Ambassador Krex standing in the doorway, his usual arrogant posture replaced by something that looked almost like nervousness. "Vextar," the Vorthak said, "I need to ask you something about yesterday." "The human's feeding behavior," Vextar replied. "I have been analyzing it myself." Krex moved closer to the examination table, his claws clicking on the metal floor. "That slug hide is designed to resist Vorthak teeth. My species evolved specifically to hunt creatures like that. It should have been impossible for her to bite through it so easily." Computer display Vorthak jaw strength measurements compared to observed human performance. The data made both beings go very still. According to the analysis, Dr. Chen's bite had generated more pressure per square inch than Krex's massive jaws were capable of producing. "That cannot be correct," Krex said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Computer, run diagnostic on measurement systems. All systems functioning normally. Measurements verified through multiple sensors." Vextar and Krex looked at each other with the shared unease of predators who had just discovered they might not be at the top of the food chain. "There is more," Vextar said. "I have been reviewing the security footage from other areas of the station. The human behavior patterns are unusual." The display shifted to show Ambassador Martinez in one of the station's common areas. As they watched, a heavy crystalline decoration fell from a wall mount. Martinez casually reached out and caught it one-handed, without even looking up from his conversation. The decoration should have shattered Zephyrian chitin on impact. "Watch his muscle tension," Vextar instructed. Before, during, and after. Krex studied the footage carefully. He barely reacted. Like catching falling objects of that mass is routine for him. Another clip showed Dr. Patel working in the atmospheric analysis section. The pressure readings indicated an environment that should have left most species gasping for air. But the human woman worked normally, showing no signs of distress. "How is this possible?" Krex asked. "Their bodies appear so delicate." Computer, access preliminary files on human species and their homeworld. The initial data that Earth had provided as part of the diplomatic protocols appeared on screen. It painted a picture of a peaceful species from a garden world. Temperate climate, abundant resources, stable environment. "This does not match observed capabilities," Vextar said. "Computer, request detailed biological and geological records from Sol 3. Request denied. Human delegation has classified such information as Level 7 sensitive." Krex's head snapped up. "Level 7? That is reserved for planetary defense information. Why would geological data be classified at that level?" Vextar's crystalline form pulsed with an uncomfortable realization, perhaps because their world is not what they claim it to be. The lab's communication system activated, and Hive Singer Veltar's melodious voice filled the room. "Vextar, Krex, please report to Council Chamber 7 immediately. We have a situation." When they arrived at the smaller chamber, they found most of the Council's Science Advisory Committee already assembled. The mood was tense. "Show them," Veltar said to her aide. The holographic display activated, showing a three-dimensional model of a skull. It was clearly human, the same general proportions as Dr. Chen's head, but something was wrong with it. "This is a human skull from their museum archives," Veltar explained. "Notice anything unusual?" Vextar studied the image carefully. "The teeth. They are designed for both cutting and grinding. But more importantly," they paused, processing the implications. "The jaw attachment points. The muscle anchor locations. This skull is designed to generate tremendous bite force. More than any sapient species on record," added another council member. "But that is not the most disturbing part." The image zoomed in on the eye sockets. forward-facing eyes, binocular vision, depth perception. These are predator adaptations. A cold silence fell over the chamber. Every species in the council had evolved from prey animals or omnivores. The idea of sapient predators was not just unusual, it was terrifying. There is more, Veltar continued. I have been analyzing their preliminary cultural data, their entertainment, their sports, their recreational activities. She paused. Everything involves competition, conflict, or simulation of hunting behavior. Images flashed on the screen. Human sports, movies, games. Even to alien eyes, the pattern was unmistakable. These beings had not evolved past their predatory instincts. They had refined them. We invited them here because they appeared harmless, said Harmonious Calculation 779. But what if we were wrong? What if they are not harmless at all? Krex, who had remained silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke. The human female yesterday. She did not just bite through the slug. She enjoyed it. I saw it in her eyes. Computer, Vextar said urgently. Cross-reference human dental patterns with extinct apex predators from death worlds. The results appeared almost instantly, and they were more terrifying than anyone had expected. Match found. Human dental configuration consistent with Terran megalodon, extinct apex predator. Secondary match Terran saber-tooth cat. Tertiary match Terran dire wolf. All extinct, Veltar noted. Computer, clarify. What happened to these species? Records indicate competitive exclusion by dominant Terran predator species approximately 10,000 to 50,000 years ago. The chamber went dead quiet as the implications sank in. The humans had not simply survived on their world. They had eliminated their competition. We need to see their homeworld data, Krex said grimly. All of it. Agreed, said Vextar. But carefully. If we are correct about their nature, we do not want to alarm them. As the council members began to disperse, each lost in their own worried thoughts, none of them noticed the small device Dr. Chen had quietly placed in the ventilation system during her tour of the station yesterday. In her quarters, Sarah listened to the recording with a slight smile. It was always interesting to see how people reacted when they started to figure out the truth. She opened her communication device and sent a brief message to Earth. They're getting suspicious. Recommend we move to Phase 2 of the Revelation Protocol. The response came back within minutes. Approved. Show them what they want to see. Sarah's smile widened, revealing teeth that had been carefully designed by millions of years of evolution to do exactly what she had done to that slug yesterday. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called for over 800 hours, but the debate had been raging since before dawn. Ambassador Martinez sat calmly at the human delegation's assigned seats, watching the alien representatives argue among themselves with increasingly heated gestures. This is ridiculous, Krex was saying, his voice echoing through the chamber. We are the Galactic Council. We have the right to examine the homeworld data of any species seeking membership. The humans have provided all required documentation, countered Veltar. Their classification of geological data is their sovereign right. Geological data that could explain how they developed such unusual physical capabilities, added Vextar, their crystalline form pulsing with agitation. Dr. Chen leaned over to Martinez and whispered, Should I tell them, or do you want to? Martinez smiled slightly. Your show, Doctor. Earth's data is your specialty. Sarah stood up and the chamber gradually fell silent. Every alien eye, compound eye, and optical sensor turned toward her. Honored council members, she began. It seems there has been some confusion about our homeworld data classification. We are happy to provide you with complete geological and biological records of Earth. The relief in the chamber was almost tangible. Several council members sat back in their seats, clearly expecting their fears to be proven groundless. Computer, Sarah said to the chamber's main system, please access Earth Archive Database 7, authorization Chen Alpha 77 Delta. Access granted, the computer replied. Warning. This data contains information classified as potentially disturbing to non-Terran species. Do you wish to proceed? A ripple of unease went through the chamber. Krex leaned forward. What kind of warning is that? Standard disclaimer, Sarah replied cheerfully. Computer, display geological overview of Sol 3, commonly known as Earth. The holographic projector filled the chamber with an image that made several council members gasp in horror. Instead of the peaceful blue-green world they had expected, they saw a planet that looked like it was actively trying to kill everything on its surface. As you can see, Sarah continued in the same pleasant tone, Earth is what we classify as a Class 12 death world. The surface is 71% water, most of it filled with predators. The remaining 29% is subject to volcanic activity, seismic events, extreme weather patterns, and dramatic climate shifts. The image zoomed in to show massive storms, erupting volcanoes, and tidal waves that dwarfed the largest structures on most civilized worlds. Computer, display extinction event timeline. A new chart appeared, showing Earth's history marked with regular catastrophic events. Earth has experienced 5 major extinction events in the last 500 million years, Sarah explained. Each one eliminated 70% to 96% of all life on the planet. Veltar's compound eyes were fixed on the display in fascination and horror. How does anything survive such conditions? Adaptation, Sarah said simply. Those species that could not adapt quickly enough went extinct. Those that could survived to reproduce. This process repeated for millions of years. But surely your species evolved during a peaceful period, suggested harmonious calculation 779. Hopefully. Computer, display human evolutionary timeline alongside major predator species. The chamber fell completely silent as the new data appeared. The timeline showed humanity's ancestors developing not in peaceful isolation, but in direct competition with creatures that belonged in nightmares. Saber-toothed cats with 9-inch fangs, Sarah narrated as images flashed by. Cave bears weighing over 2,500 pounds. Dire wolves that hunted in coordinated packs. Short-faced bears that could run 40 miles per hour. Giant hyenas with bone-crushing jaws. What happened to these creatures? Krex asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. Competitive exclusion, Sarah replied matter-of-factly. They competed with humans for resources and territory. Humans won. You eliminated them? Veltar's voice was barely above a whisper. Not directly. Humans are persistence hunters. We do not have the speed to catch prey or the claws to kill it quickly. Instead, we chase it until it collapses from exhaustion. We track wounded prey for days until it dies. We work in coordinated groups to surround and overwhelm much larger predators. The alien stared at her in growing horror. This was not the description of a peaceful species. This was the hunting strategy of something far more frightening than any mere predator. Computer, display current Earth predator species. A much shorter list appeared on screen. As you can see, very few large predators remain on Earth. Humans domesticated some species like wolves, which became dogs. Others were driven to near extinction until humans decided to preserve them in protected areas. You protect them? Asked Vextar, confused. We feel responsible for them, Sarah explained. Humans have a complex relationship with other predators. We compete with them, but we also respect them. Many human cultures consider it important to preserve the species we displaced. Dr. Patel stood up beside Sarah. This might be a good time to explain human pack behavior. Pack behavior? Krex's voice was strained. Humans are social persistence hunters, Patel explained. We evolved to work together in coordinated groups. Our entire civilization is built around pack cooperation on increasingly large scales. Computer, display human population statistics and organizational structures. The numbers that appeared made several council members actually retreat in their seats. 8 billion humans on one world, organized into complex hierarchical structures that could coordinate the actions of millions of individuals. This is why we classify Earth's data as sensitive, Martinez said, speaking for the first time during the presentation. Not because we are ashamed of our world, but because most species find our evolutionary history disturbing. You are apex predators, Veltar said, the word sounding like an accusation. Were, Sarah corrected gently. We evolved past the need for active hunting about 10,000 years ago, when we developed agriculture. But the adaptations remain. Computer display human physical capabilities compared to galactic standard. The data that appeared explained everything the Council had observed over the past few days. Humans could survive in atmospheric conditions that would kill most species. Their reflexes were designed for catching and avoiding fast-moving threats. Their jaw strength was optimized for processing a wide variety of food sources. Their binocular vision was perfect for tracking prey. The bite force you observed, Sarah said to Krex, is just one adaptation among many. Humans evolved to survive on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Our bodies reflect that evolutionary pressure. But you came here seeking peaceful cooperation, pointed out Veltar. Because we choose cooperation over conquest, Martinez replied. Humans learned long ago that working together produces better results than fighting. We could have arrived here with weapons and demands, but we chose diplomacy instead. You could have, Krex began, then stopped as the implications hit him. Yes, Sarah said quietly. We could have. Our military technology is based on the same persistence hunting principles that made us successful predators, but we prefer to build rather than destroy. The chamber was silent for long minutes as the council members processed what they had learned. Finally, Vextar spoke. Why are you telling us this? You could have continued to let us believe you were harmless. Sarah exchanged glances with Martinez, who nodded slightly. Because you need to understand what humans are if we are going to work together, she said, and because there is something coming that you should know about. What do you mean, something coming? Sarah's expression grew serious. Computer displayed deep space monitoring data from Earth's outer sensor network. A new image appeared. The vast emptiness between galaxies, marked with movement indicators that pulsed with ominous regularity. The void swarm, she said simply. Your records show it returns every few million years to purge the galaxy of advanced civilizations. It's overdue. The council chamber erupted in panicked voices. The void swarm was the galaxy's oldest nightmare, an unstoppable force that had ended countless civilizations throughout history. Our sensors detect leading elements, approximately 97 years out. Sarah continued over the noise. Full arrival estimated in 150 to 200 years. We must begin evacuation procedures, Veltar said urgently. Find suitable hiding places in the void between galaxies. Or, said Sarah, you could let us help you fight them. The chamber fell silent again. Krex stared at her in disbelief. Fight the void swarm? That is impossible. No one has ever successfully resisted them. Sarah smiled, and for the first time the council members saw something truly predatory in her expression. No one has ever tried, she said. Every previous civilization either fled or hid when they arrived. But humans do not flee from predators. What do you do? Asked Vextar, though their voice suggested they already suspected the answer. We hunt them back. The testing facility deep within the Galactic Council station had never been used for anything like this before. Built to evaluate the capabilities of potential member species, it had typically been used for harmless demonstrations of cultural achievements or simple physical assessments. Today, it would test the limits of what the council thought was possible. Dr. Chen stood in the center of the main testing chamber, surrounded by monitoring equipment that buzzed and hummed with alien technology. Through the reinforced observation windows, she could see the assembled council representatives watching her with expressions ranging from scientific curiosity to barely concealed fear. This is unnecessary, Ambassador Martinez had argued during the emergency planning session. We have already provided complete documentation of human capabilities. Documentation can be fabricated, Krex had replied, his voice tight with suspicion. We need to see for ourselves what humans are truly capable of. Now, 3 days later, Sarah found herself serving as humanity's representative in what amounted to a series of challenges, designed to either confirm or disprove the aliens' worst fears about her species. Dr. Chen, came Vextar's voice through the chamber's communication system. We will begin with atmospheric tolerance testing. The chamber will be filled with a gas mixture that mimics the environment of Kepler 442c. Sarah nodded and moved to the center of the room. She had read the specifications for Kepler 442c's atmosphere. 60% nitrogen, 30% carbon dioxide, 8% methane, and 2% trace gases that would be mildly toxic to most Earth life. The pressure would be nearly 3 times Earth normal. Beginning atmospheric adjustment, announced the facility's computer. Through the observation windows, Sarah could see the alien representatives leaning forward with interest. Several species required breathing apparatus just to survive in the station's standard atmosphere. They expected her to collapse within minutes. The gas mixture began flowing into the chamber. Sarah felt the pressure increase and the burning sensation as the alien atmosphere filled her lungs. Her body's automatic responses kicked in. Increased heart rate, dilation of blood vessels, metabolic adjustments that had kept her ancestors alive in Earth's toxic swamps and volcanic regions. After 5 minutes, she was still standing normally. After 10 minutes, she was doing jumping jacks. After 20 minutes, she began reciting poetry to demonstrate that her cognitive functions were unimpaired. Impossible, whispered someone in the observation room. How is her cellular metabolism functioning in that environment? Asked another voice. Sarah smiled and waved at the cameras. Humans had evolved on a world where the atmosphere itself had changed dramatically multiple times. Their bodies were designed to adapt to environmental variations that would kill more specialized species. Test 2, Vextar announced, though their voice now carried a note of uncertainty. Gravitational stress tolerance. The chamber's gravity generators activated and Sarah felt her weight increase dramatically. The display showed 4.2 times Earth gravity, enough to crush most alien bone structures. Sarah's legs bent slightly under the increased load, but she remained standing. Through her earpiece, she heard Dr. Patel's voice from the human observation area. Remember, Sarah, this is about demonstrating adaptive capability, not showing off. Sarah nodded and began moving around the chamber. Her movements were slower and more deliberate, but she was clearly functional. The aliens watching her had gone completely silent. In Earth's history, Sarah said, speaking toward the cameras, gravity has varied due to planetary position changes and rotational variations. Early humans regularly climbed mountains where air pressure and effective gravity created similar conditions to what you are testing now. She demonstrated by doing a series of push-ups, each one slow but controlled. The message was clear. This was not the limit of human capability. It was simply another environmental condition to adapt to. Test 3, Vextar said, and Sarah could hear the crystalline beings' distress in their harmonic patterns. Cognitive function under stress. The chamber's walls lit up with a complex holographic puzzle, a three-dimensional maze of light and mathematical equations that had been designed by the galaxy's most advanced artificial intelligence. The typical solution time for council species was between 6 and 8 hours. Sarah studied the pattern for 30 seconds, then began moving through the holographic interface with swift, confident gestures. The equations dissolved under her fingers as she worked through the logical pathways with the kind of spatial reasoning that had allowed her ancestors to track, prey across vast distances and remember the locations of resources across entire continents. 14 minutes, announced the computer, as the puzzle collapsed into a shower of light. New record established. That is not possible, said Harmonious Calculation 779. Our artificial intelligence required 3 hours to create that puzzle. Different problem-solving approaches, Sarah replied cheerfully. Humans evolved to find solutions quickly in life-or-death situations. Our brains are optimized for rapid pattern recognition and creative thinking under pressure. She paused and looked directly at the observation windows. Also, your AI made 3 logical errors in the puzzle construction that created shortcuts. You might want to upgrade its creative thinking subroutines. The silence from the observation room was deafening. They had just watched a human casually identify flaws in technology that represented the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Final test, Vexitar said, their voice now clearly strained. Threat assessment and survival instinct evaluation. Sarah raised an eyebrow. What exactly does that involve? We will activate a holographic simulation of the galaxy's most feared predator, Veltar explained through the communication system. The shadow beast of the void. It has been responsible for the destruction of 14 different civilizations. We want to observe human fear responses and survival strategies. Ah, Sarah said, understanding. You want to see how humans react to an apex predator. The chamber darkened and a shape began forming in the holographic projectors. Even knowing it was not real, Sarah felt her body's automatic responses engaging as the creature took shape. It was nightmare given form, a writhing mass of darkness and teeth, with too many limbs and eyes that seemed to look directly into her soul. The aliens in the observation room watched in fascination as human stress hormones flooded Sarah's system. Her heart rate increased, her pupils dilated, and her breathing became rapid and shallow. This was the fear response they had expected to see. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of fleeing or freezing in terror, Sarah began to circle the creature, studying it with the focused intensity of a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. "Interesting," she said, her voice calm despite her body's stress response. The multiple appendages suggest it evolved in a low-gravity environment. The optical sensors are positioned for 360-degree awareness, which means it developed as both predator and prey. The bioluminescent patterns are probably used for communication and coordination with others of its kind. She moved closer to the holographic beast, ignoring its simulated roars and aggressive displays. The jaw structure is designed for crushing rather than cutting, which means it probably feeds on armored prey. The appendage placement suggests it can move in 3 dimensions equally well. "If I had to fight this thing..." She paused, tilting her head as she considered the creature from multiple angles. "I would use its size against it. Something this large needs a lot of energy, so it probably has high caloric requirements and limited endurance. Force it into a pursuit situation, tire it out, then attack the sensory organs to disable its coordination. Or better yet, use pack tactics. 3 or 4 humans working together could probably take one down without too much difficulty." The silence from the observation room stretched on and on. Finally, Krex's voice came through the speakers. "Dr. Chen, that creature has destroyed entire civilizations." "Yes," Sarah replied, still studying the hologram. "But those civilizations probably tried to fight it using conventional military tactics. Big ships, energy weapons, direct confrontation. That is exactly the wrong approach for something like this." "What would be the right approach?" Sarah turned to face the observation windows, and her smile was sharp enough to cut metal. "Persistence hunting. You do not fight a shadow beast. You hunt it, track it back to its breeding grounds, study its life cycle, identify its weaknesses, and then systematically eliminate its food sources until it starves. Or you poison its water supply, or you introduce a biological agent that targets its reproductive system." She gestured casually at the holographic monster. "Humans have been eliminating inconvenient predators for thousands of years. We are very good at it." The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving Sarah alone in the bright chamber. Through the observation windows, she could see the alien representative staring at her with expressions she was beginning to recognize. It was not fear, exactly. It was the look of beings who had just realized they were no longer at the top of the food chain. "Testing complete," announced the computer. All parameters exceeded expected ranges by significant margins. Ambassador Martinez's voice came through Sarah's earpiece. "How do you feel about heading back to Earth for a while?" "I think we might have made our point." Sarah looked around the chamber one more. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been running for 18 hours straight. Outside the Great Chamber's windows, the 3 suns of the Kepler system had set and risen again while the representatives debated humanity's fate. The air recyclers worked overtime to process the stress pheromones and nervous emissions from dozens of different species. "The motion before us is clear," announced the council speaker, an ancient being whose species had been mediating galactic disputes for over 10,000 years. "Complete quarantine of the Sol system and all human space travel. Effective immediately." Ambassador Martinez sat quietly at the human delegation's table, watching the proceedings with the patience his species had learned from millions of years of persistence hunting. Beside him, Dr. Chen was taking notes, occasionally sharing amused glances with Dr. Patel when the alien representatives made particularly dramatic statements about human capabilities. "These beings are a threat to galactic stability," Krex declared, his massive form dominating the Vorthax section of the chamber. "They admit to eliminating every competing predator on their homeworld. They demonstrate capabilities that exceed our most advanced species. They speak casually of hunting creatures that have destroyed entire civilizations." "The Vorthak representative makes valid points," agreed Veltar, her compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights. "While we appreciate human honesty about their nature, we must consider the safety of all council species." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several smaller species had already requested immediate transport to their homeworlds, clearly unwilling to remain in the same system as the human delegation. Dr. Vextar pulsed with agitated light patterns. "The test results are undeniable. Human atmospheric tolerance exceeds safety parameters for most known worlds. Their gravitational resistance allows them to function in environments that would crush our strongest military units. Their cognitive processing speed suggests they could outthink our most advanced computers. And their threat assessment capabilities, added another representative with a shudder, are genuinely terrifying. Dr. Chen analyzed our most feared galactic predator like she was planning a hunting expedition. Ambassador Martinez finally stood up, and the chamber gradually fell silent. When he spoke, his voice was calm and measured. Honored council members, I understand your concerns. Humans are indeed apex predators from a death world. We do not deny this, nor do we apologize for it. Evolution shaped us to survive in an environment that would destroy most of your civilizations. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. But you are missing the most important point about human evolution. We did not just learn to survive as predators. We learned to choose when to hunt and when to protect. Elaborate, demanded the speaker. Dr. Chen stood beside Martinez. May I demonstrate something? Without waiting for permission, she activated her personal communication device. Computer, connect to Earth Defense Network. Priority Channel 7. Connection established, replied the device in a crisp, professional tone that made several aliens flinch. Admiral Harrison, this is Dr. Chen. Please provide current status of Earth's military assets. Good evening. Dr. Chen, came a gravelly voice that filled the chamber with unmistakable authority. All defensive systems are operating normally. Shall I detail our current deployment? The alien representatives leaned forward with fearful anticipation. This was their first direct contact with human military leadership. Please give the Council a general overview of our defensive capabilities. Certainly. We currently maintain 2,947 automated defense platforms throughout the Sol system, each capable of eliminating targets up to frigate class. Our deep space monitoring network extends 47 light-years in all directions. Fleet Command has 342 vessels on active patrol, with another 200 in ready reserve. The numbers brought stunned silence to the chamber. The entire Galactic Council's combined military forces numbered fewer than 800 ships, and most of those were lightly armed exploration vessels. Thank you, Admiral, Sarah said. One more question. What are your current rules of engagement regarding non-human vessels? Standard peaceful contact protocols remain in effect, the Admiral replied. All non-human vessels are to be escorted safely through human space with full assistance provided for any mechanical difficulties or medical emergencies. No hostile actions are authorized without direct threat to human civilian populations. Sarah closed the connection and looked around the chamber. You see, humans have the capability to destroy every military force in this room, but our rules of engagement prioritize protection and assistance. But for how long? Asked Krek suspiciously. What happens when humans decide they no longer need galactic cooperation? Dr. Patel stepped forward. That brings us to why we really came here. Computer display long-range sensor data from Earth's outer monitoring stations. The chamber's holographic projectors activated, showing the vast emptiness of intergalactic space. But this emptiness was not empty. It pulsed with movement indicators that painted a terrifying picture of something vast approaching the galaxy. The Void Swarm, Martinez said simply. Current estimated arrival 127 years. The chamber erupted in panic. Species representatives began shouting over each other, demanding evacuation plans and hiding strategies. The Void Swarm was the galaxy's oldest nightmare, an unstoppable force that had ended dozens of advanced civilizations throughout recorded history. Order, commanded the speaker. We have faced the Void Swarm before. Standard procedure is to locate suitable hiding worlds in distant systems and wait for the threat to pass. That strategy has never worked, Sarah pointed out. The swarm always finds hidden populations eventually. Your own records show that survival rates for the hiding strategy are less than 15%. Do you have a better suggestion? Asked Veltar, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. Yes, Martinez replied. We fight back. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of various species equivalent of nervous breathing. Fight the Void Swarm? Whispered Harmonious Calculation 779. That is impossible. They are a force of nature. No, Sarah said firmly. They are predators. Very successful predators, but still predators. And humans have been dealing with predators for millions of years. She activated the holographic display again, zooming in on the approaching swarm formations. Look at their movement patterns. They travel in coordinated groups. They follow predictable routes through galactic space, and they have consistent feeding behaviors. This is not some unstoppable natural disaster. This is a species that has found an effective hunting strategy and never encountered serious resistance. "What are you proposing?" asked the speaker. Dr. Patel stepped forward with a data pad. "Human military analysts have been studying the Void Swarm for the past 30 years, ever since our deep space sensors first detected their approach. We have identified 17 potential vulnerabilities in their hunting patterns." The display shifted to show tactical analyses that made the alien representatives stare in amazement. Supply line disruptions, communication interference patterns, behavioral prediction models. This was not the desperate planning of prey animals. This was the systematic analysis of persistence hunters preparing to eliminate a competing predator. "The key insight," Martinez explained, "is that the Void Swarm has never faced coordinated resistance. Every previous civilization either fled or tried to hide. No one has ever made them pay a real cost for their aggression." "You want to make them extinct," Craig said, and his voice carried a note of respect that had not been there before. "If necessary," Sarah replied calmly, "but preferably we want to convince them that this galaxy is too dangerous to hunt in. Predators are fundamentally practical. If the cost of hunting here becomes too high, they will find easier prey elsewhere." "And if they refuse to leave?" Sarah's smile was sharp and predatory. "Then we hunt them until there are none left to refuse." The chamber remained silent for a long time as the alien representatives processed the implications. Finally, the speaker addressed the human delegation directly. "You are asking us to trust you with the defense of our entire civilization." "No," Martinez corrected. "We are asking you to let us teach you how to defend yourselves. Humans prefer cooperation to conquest. But we understand that some threats require elimination. We can show you how to be predators when necessary." "And if we refuse?" Ambassador Martinez shrugged. "Then you follow your traditional strategies. Hide, flee, hope for the best. But the Void Swarm is coming whether you accept our help or not. In 127 years, you will either be part of a galactic alliance capable of unified defense, or you will be scattered refugees hiding in the void between galaxies." Dr. Vexitar pulsed with contemplative light patterns. "What would this alliance require from us?" "Military cooperation, resource sharing, and technological exchange," Dr. Patel replied. "Plus a willingness to learn human tactical doctrine. Some of our strategies will seem aggressive to species that evolved as prey animals. And in return, humanity becomes the galaxy's protectors," Sarah said simply. "We take responsibility for threats that are too dangerous for other species to handle. When something comes hunting in our galaxy, it will have to go through us first, IME, then up at the